is the tote bag that we're going to be making with a nice peace sign on it. So first of all, we're going to begin by making the straps, and the way we do that is you take your first strap and we're going to iron it in half, and we're going to iron it then 1/2 inch either side, like this. So like I said, we're going to fold it in half lengthways and iron. I like to use the steam on my iron just to give it a nice crease. Okay, then open it up, and we're just going to do a 1/2 inch on both of the long edges. And then the other side. If you don't feel happy just estimating the 1/2 inch, you can actually draw a pencil line. Maybe that will make it easier. And then again, we fold it back along our original center crease and just give it one more iron, making sure that both the edges are meeting. Okay. So now we've ironed the strap, I'm going to pin it and stitch it. I put pins about every 3 inches along the edge, and I always put the pins where I'm going to stitch. It's just the way I do it, but it makes it easier so you're visualizing as you go along. There we go, I've got 5 pins in mine holding it down nicely. So now I'm going to stitch this. Okay, so just nice and neatly stitched. So we do exactly the same with the other one, and you put your 2 straps to one side. So the next thing we're going to do is make our peace sign. And the way you do this is you iron your fusible paper with the design on it onto your paper, onto your fabric, and then you're going to cut round the lines. And what I do to get to the middle bits is I just make a little fold like that, just put a little nick in the fabric so you can get your scissors in. Okay, and then you just carefully cut out your shape. And obviously you could use different shapes for this if you wanted to do maybe a heart or an initial. The initials are always popular on the tote bags. Okay, so you just continue like that until you have your peace sign cut out or your shape. And then peel away the fabric from the back. Like that. And then take the front of your tote bag. Okay, this fabric actually is the same on both sides, but obviously you need it to be on the right side of the fabric, and you just put the peace sign wherever you'd like it. I'm going to put mine right in the middle, and I'm going to take this over to the ironing board and iron it. And for this, actually, you turn the steam off your iron whenever you're using the fusible paper. And just gently run the iron over it for about maybe 10 seconds. Okay. So now we're going to stitch this on using a zigzag stitch. So I'm going to set my machine on a zigzag stitch. I'm going to make the length shorter and I'm going to make the width longer. So on mine, I'm probably doing my length like 1 and a bit, and I'm going to do the width. I'm going to try it on 4. And you can play around with this just to make sure that you're you get the desired effect. I want it to be a zigzag which is quite close together. I'm going to do mine a little closer together, so put it down to 1. And there we go. So when you're going around the curve, you just slowly manipulate your fabric. Okay, and we're back to the beginning. So remove the fabric, cut the thread, and then we're going to continue with the inside pieces. And if you can see what I'm doing here, because I've got more of an angle, I've got like a corner, I'm going to leave the needle in the fabric, lift up the foot and turn so that I'm heading down the next piece that I want to go to. And by leaving the needle in, it means that you do not lose your space. So again, needle in, foot up, and swivel your fabric around. Okay, so next one. have one more to do. Okay, so I'm just going to trim off those threads, and if you don't feel happy doing this on the machine, depending on your skill level, you could do this by hand. You could use a permanent fusible fabric, which means that you don't have to stitch it at all, but I do think that the stitching gives it a really nice finish. Okay, so now we are going to start putting the bag together and adding the straps. So first of all, we're going to go over to the iron and fold in a 1/2 inch and a 1/2 inch on the top of both pieces. So we're going to take the back and the front, and we're going to make a fold at the top, a 1/2 inch in, and another 1/2 inch, like this. Okay, so take your iron, which I'm going to put back on the steam. Again, if you're not happy about estimating where a 1/2 inch is, I mean, in this case it really doesn't matter if it's not exact, as long as both the front and the back are the same. But you could use a chalk pencil to make a line if you'd prefer. So now I'm going to put the straps in position under this piece. And I'm going to do it about 2 inches in. This mat that I have, this cutting board, actually is great because you can see each square is 1 inch. And we just, again, want to get them, doesn't have to be 2 inches, but it's just it's good to get them both the same. So we're going to pin that in place. And making sure that your strap isn't twisted, we're going to put this 2 inches in from the other side. Just trim that first. Like that. Okay, so I'll show you again on the other one, on the other side. I'm going to put this 2 inches in from this end, and this just means it's just a neat way of hiding the ends of the straps and you don't see any of the raw edges. Again, you're going to put this one under there like that. So I'm going to just sew a straight line of stitching down both of those. Whoops, I needed to change my machine to straight stitch. Okay. Just hold that in place as you go through. And we don't need to do reverse stitches because this end bit is going to be in the side seam. Okay, so there's one. And there's the second one. Okay, so now we're going to make it so that they're in place on this side. So we're going to pin these in place and stitch on that side too, or stitch them in place on that side. So I'm going to pin them in place like that. And I'm actually just going to stitch over this little section here. So you will need to use a backward stitch or reverse stitch at the beginning and end this time. Okay, so remove the pin. I'm going to go forwards and then back just to make it nice and secure. Okay, so go to the end of the strap, just to the end of the strap, and then a couple of reverse stitches and back again. So again, start at the beginning of the strap, forward, back, forward, all the way to the end of the strap, back and forward. And now your straps are in the right position and they're nice and neat. And we just trim all those loose ends. So you do exactly the same with the other bag, the other side of the bag. So we pin them in place and then stitch. Okay, so needle in. Go forward a little, back a little, to the end of the strap, reverse, forward, and finally this one. Forward, back, forward, take the pin out. There we go. I like to trim the threads as we go along, and that way you don't get them all caught up in the next step. Okay, so straps all done. So now we're going to take the bag and sew it together. So we put the right sides together, line it all up nicely, and if you did everything correctly up until now, it should all match up. If it doesn't, you could you could trim any little extra bits. Just make it nice and even down the sides. And make sure, for sure, that this top bit meets. So if it's a little uneven at the bottom, you can trim that, but make sure these two meet. Okay, and so when you're pinning, you imagine that you're going to start sewing here and go around, so your pins will continue in the same direction. It will be a lot easier when you're taking the pins out when you're sewing. And again, I put them on the line where I'm going to be stitching. So again, follow the pins around in the same direction. Like that. See, I have a little bit here, so I'm going to trim it off. Okay, so I'm going to sew this. And it's very important here that you do some reverse stitches. In fact, I usually go forwards, backwards again, just to make sure, because that's where the most pull is going to be on the bag. So we'll make it nice and strong. So forward, back, forward, back a little bit again, and then go all the way down. If you've got a stripe on your fabric like me, it's very easy to make a nice straight line. If you are not very happy about your straight lines, you could always draw a pencil mark. Okay, so whatever your seam allowance is, which I usually use 5/8 of an inch, you stop that far away from the bottom with your needle in. You lift the foot, swivel, just like you did on the applique, and now you're going to go down this side of the bag. So remove the pins as you go along. Okay, again, needle in, foot up, swivel. And see how I put the pins in that way, so I can remove them this way instead of having to pull them out that way. So again, at the end, we're going to reinforce it. So we get all the way to the end, backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards to the end. Okay, so we're just going to, again, trim any of the loose threads. And whenever you stitch around corners, before you flip it the right side out, you need to trim, and it's called clipping the corner. You just cut across there, not going through your stitching. So I don't know if you can see, but my stitching is just before that. And this means that when you flip the bag, or it might be a pillow or something, it just means that the corner is far less bulky. Okay, so we are going to now flip the bag and begin to see how nice it's looking. And to get the corners nice and square, you can use something not too pointy. As you can see, these have just got a nice curve on the end. You don't want something to go through your corner, but it does press the corner out and make it nice and sharp. And it's worth taking a few minutes just to get that out right. So now we're going to take it over to the ironing board and just iron the edges. So this is where it's worth taking a little bit of extra time just to make sure your seams come all the way out. They tend to be sort of folded, rolled into the middle, and you need to pull it out with your, just get your nails in there and just steam is good. And again, just Just kind of pull it out. Get into the seam and just pull it out with your nails. Just like that, pull it out. Just get that end bit. Now you could leave your tote bag like this, or what I'm going to do is make like a little base on it with this little corner detail, which is very cute. Okay, so flip your bag back again so it's inside out. Get the corners pushed out, and you kind of need to put your hand in it like a puppet and hold the corners down this way so that the seam is like that. Okay, and we are going to press it nice and flat, and I'm just going to get a ruler and a pencil, and you're going to measure 2 inches. Now these rulers are a great investment because they're just so helpful with sewing. You can use a regular ruler though and just measure 2 inches up from right from the very corner. And again, it could be smaller or bigger than that. It doesn't have to be 2 inches, but I like that for the size of the bag that we're doing. Okay, I'm going to draw a line. And then I'm just going to pin that. And we're going to stitch along this line. But before that, I'm going to do the other side too. So again, you're going to get your bag like this, almost like so this seam and this seam are together. Make your triangle. Like that. Measure 2 inches. Draw your line. And pin it. And now we're going to stitch on those 2 lines. Reverse stitches needed this time. To the end, reverse, forward. Okay, and the second one exactly the same. Reverse stitch. Remove the pin. Follow your line to the end. Reverse. Like that. And now we're going to trim this excess fabric from here. We don't want all that bulk in the bottom of the bag. Okay, so just trim about, maybe about 1/4 inch away from the line. And the same with the other side. Let's clip a few loose threads. Like that. And again, just push your corners out. Trim any loose threads that might be showing anywhere. And there you have your cute little piece bag.